They built 16 luxury cabins on my land. Spent $4. 8 million. And I said nothing. No complaints. No lawsuits. Because I was waiting for one day to shut it all down with a single document. They built 16 luxury cabins on my shoreline, full foundations, private boat launches, even polished bronze address plaques over 3 years and $4. 8 million of construction. And the entire time, I stayed silent. Not because I didn't know, but because I knew exactly what they were doing. See, Diane, the HOA president behind it all, mistook my silence for ignorance. She thought I was just some quiet heir who didn't understand the value of his own land. She never checked the original 1960 deed, never saw the recorded shoreline easement my grandfather filed, the one that legally bans everything she built. So I let it happen. I let her sell memberships at $79,000 each. Let her secure $2 million loan. Let her celebrate with ribbon cuttings and applause. And on the final closing day, I walked into that office with a single piece of paper that could destroy all of it. I've spent over 2 decades studying land rights, trained by my father, sharpened through years working with the Army Corps of Engineers. I understand riparian easements better than most attorneys. And what Diane didn't realize is that this wasn't just land. This was 4 generations of legacy. Harlan's Cove. My grandfather bought it with 15 years of savings. My father preserved it. I grew up on that granite shoreline. My daughter learned to swim there. This wasn't about money, it was about protecting something that was never meant to be touched. And what she built, it wasn't just illegal, it was reckless. 14 cabins, millions in revenue, trees cut from protected land, a drainage channel rerouted, a wetland covered in concrete. Every dollar invested, sitting on land she never had the legal right to use. Because here's the truth most people don't understand. A recorded easement doesn't disappear. It doesn't expire. It waits. My grandfather made sure of that back in 1960 after fighting off a careless neighbor who nearly destroyed the water source. He didn't just win that battle, he made sure no one would ever try again. He locked it into law quietly, permanently. And for 61 years, it sat there, untouched, unquestioned, until Diane built right over it. So I watched. I documented. I waited. Because in property disputes, the most dangerous moment isn't the lawsuit. It's the silence right before it. I marked March 14th on my wall calendar, and when my daughter asked why, I just smiled and said, a meeting. By late 2021, Diane had been watching me closely, waiting for a reaction that never came. No calls, no complaints, no legal notices, just silence. Even as construction continued on land that wasn't hers to touch. But Diane didn't see silence as a strategy. She saw opportunity. So she made her move. First came the letter, claiming adverse use over my shoreline. A legal argument so weak it almost felt insulting. Then came a so-called surveyor without credentials. Then the fines, one after another, targeting my grandfather's dock. Fabricated violations, imaginary landscaping issues. All neatly printed on official HOA letterhead, as if repetition could turn fiction into fact. I documented everything. Every lie, every notice, every overstep. By mid-2022, the total had climbed to $3,800, and then came the threat of a lien. A bluff. One I understood better than she did. So I said nothing, and paid nothing. But Diane didn't stop there. When paperwork didn't break me, she tried something else to control the narrative. Anonymous posts appeared online, painting me as difficult, dangerous, even suggesting I was secretly selling out the neighborhood. And slowly it worked. Neighbors I'd known for decades grew distant. Conversations faded. Even the man who used to fish with my father couldn't meet my eyes anymore. That part cost more than any fine. My daughter wanted to fight back publicly. I told her no. Screenshot everything, I said. Let them talk. Because every lie was evidence. Every post was part of a pattern. Then came the trespass. 2 men, deep inside my property line, posing as surveyors, unlicensed, undocumented, sent by the HOA. That was the moment everything changed. I had them leave, documented their faces, their vehicle, their equipment and filed a formal complaint with the sheriff. What Diane thought was pressure had just become a legal record. From that point on, I wasn't observing anymore. I was building a case. By December, the pressure peaked. A $22,000 demand letter. Civil action threatened. Even with everything in my favor, doubt crept in, the kind that shows up at 2 a.m. and doesn't listen to logic. So I went back to the source, the original 1963 deed. I read every line under a dim archive light, and there it was. Solid. Unbreakable. My grandfather's handwritten note in the margin. For the protection of this land and all who come after. No loopholes. No cracks. Just certainty. And then, in January 2023, Diane made her biggest mistake. She announced the final closing date. March 14th. The same date I had already circled. Because while she was celebrating a landmark achievement, I was preparing the document that would end it, and I still hadn't filed it. We didn't file the notice we waited for. Instead, I made a quiet move no one saw coming. I sent a full documentation package directly to the State Department of Environmental Quality photos, GPS coordinates, permit gaps, habitat maps, and everything I had spent over a year building. 2 weeks later, they opened an inquiry. I told no one. Not my neighbors, not Diane. No one. By February, I made one final call to the title company handling the March 14th closings. Just a routine question, enough to confirm what I needed to know. Everyone would be there. Buyers ready. Diane is ready. Papers ready. They weren't walking into a trap. They were walking into the truth. That morning, I wore the same pressed shirt I had worn to my father's funeral. Some days demand a certain kind of presence. By 10:02, I was sitting quietly in the title office waiting area while 2 buyers arrived, hopeful, excited, carrying folders like their future was inside them. Diane was already inside, composed, confident, certain she had won. Then everything shifted. I handed the title officer the certified easement documents dated that morning. She read them once, then again, and walked away faster than she came. Minutes later, we were all in the same room. No drama, no raised voices, just one sentence that collapsed everything. The properties could not legally close because of a recorded easement from 1963 that had never been disclosed. The room changed instantly. Confusion, silence, panic. Diane tried to push back, but the law doesn't respond to confidence. The closings were canceled on the spot. Within 48 hours, I moved. Formal notices served to the HOA, to Diane personally, and to the bank holding the $2.1 million loan. The bank reacted in 72 hours. That alone told the story. The loan was pushed into default. At the same time, the environmental investigation escalated, and what they found was worse than anyone expected. Illegal drainage rerouting, protected trees cut down, wetland violations, no shoreline permits. What started as a property dispute became a multi-layered legal collapse. Because when environmental violations stack on top of easement violations, the risk doesn't add up. By April, we were in court. My attorney requested a preliminary injunction, and the judge only needed one question answered. Was the easement recorded? It was. That was enough. All 14 cabins shut down immediately. No rentals. No revenue. No operations. Overnight, for dollars. 2 million developments became a financial liability. The projected income vanished. The loan stayed in default. The investigation kept moving. 3 years of silence ended in a single ruling. And as I walked out of that courthouse, one of my neighbors, someone who hadn't spoken to me in months, fell into step beside me. And for the first time, he didn't look away. Neither did I. He asked if I felt like I had one. And the truth was simple: I never wanted a win. I just wanted them to read the deed. But the injunction changed everything. The investors started asking questions. Real questions. And when they dug deeper, they found what Diane had hoped no one ever would do. A 2019 survey her own committee reviewed, clearly referencing the easement. And worse, an email. Let's not flag the Beaumont easement issue. It's old. No one's going to chase it. That single line ended her career. She resigned within days, disappeared within a week, and by September 2023, the court made it official. Every claim ruled in my favor. The cabins violated the easement. The land had to be restored. The boat launch was removed. The damage was $188,000. But the real cost? Much higher. The bank moved in. The HOA collapsed under financial pressure. And for the first time, the truth was no longer quiet. A new board took over. The first thing they did was apologize. In writing, signed by every member. But the moment that stayed with me wasn't in a courtroom or a headline. It was a knock at my door. Dave, six-pack in hand. No speech, just, I'm sorry. We walked down to the water like we used to, sat in silence. And somehow, that fixed more than anything else. By spring 2024, the land began to heal. The machines came back not to destroy, but to restore. The drainage corridor reopened. The concrete was torn out. And 14 new white pines were planted where the old ones had been taken. I planted the first one with my daughter. She took a photo. And that photo is still on my phone. Because you can't bring back what was lost, but you can decide what grows next. My grandfather understood that when he filed that easement in 1960. He wasn't protecting land. He was protecting a future he would never see. And now, that future is hers. So if you're dealing with an HOA like this, listen carefully. Go to your county clerk. Pull every document tied to your land. Read every page. Because somewhere in that paper trail, someone before you may have already fought this fight. They may have already won. You just have to find it,